Hey, what's up guys? Joker here, and I hope you're all doing well. Today I am going to be sharing with you some gameplay of the newly released game Control from Remedy, who previously worked on titles like Alan Wake and Quantum Break, which actually rhymed. Didn't realize that until just now. I'm going to be showing you some 4K RTX gameplay on the 2080 Ti paired up with the i9 9900K, and I'm also running on the latest driver, which is 436.15. And for the majority of this video, I will not be doing any commentary, but I did want to do a brief introduction, go over the options menu, and also explain some of the things I was seeing during my gameplay of this game. So my initial impressions of using RTX and ray tracing basically in this game is that it is, well, as you'd expect, it's incredibly demanding, especially at 4K at the resolution I was playing at, but DLSS does help out a lot, and it's actually a very good implementation of DLSS, and it's pretty much mandatory to use that. If I tried to run this at 4K native without using DLSS, it pretty much runs around 30 frames per second. It's abysmal. So yeah, it's really rough to try to use it like that, and that's with all the ray tracing features turned on, which I really can't advise anyone to do, even if you're running a 2080 Ti. So we'll go into the options menu here, and I'll explain some of that a little bit further. As you can see right now, I am running at 4K, but the render resolution is 1440p, which I did not set that way. That's actually what it goes to by default if you run DLSS. If you turn DLSS off, you can obviously run it at native 4K, but DLSS is basically using half resolution, which is what 1440p is, so that's why it goes to that. As you can see, I am on a custom quality preset because I'm not using MSAA, as well, you can't use it with DLSS, but also wouldn't necessarily be necessary with yeah, I can say that with a 2080 Ti running at 4K. So we can see you got a bunch of options here that you can actually customize. We got far object detail, LOD, texture resolutions, texture filtering, shadow resolution, which didn't have a big impact on performance when I tried messing with it. Shadow filtering, volumetric lighting, screen space reflections, as well as SSAO, the ambient occlusion solution, and MSAA and screen space reflections are grayed out, so you can't adjust those options at all if you are using, well, you can't adjust the reflections at all if you're using ray trace reflections, and you can't adjust MSAA if you're using DLSS. So that's basically what we have to go on here. And then film grain, I do have toggled off because it looks awful. You may notice there is one option missing here in this, which is motion blur. You cannot disable it in the game menus at all, and it does look really bad. Thankfully, I was able to manage that, though, when I did some poking around online to look for a command line argument that was used in previous games for Quantum Break, specifically. These developers love putting motion blur in games and not letting us turn them off for whatever reason. But if you had the command line argument no blur, which is just, you would just do hyphen no blur, all one words, just no spaces at all in that, it'll work absolutely fine. You can do that either to the shortcut of the game, or it might support it through the Epic launcher, as this is an Epic exclusive. It's not on Steam, so you can't do it through the Steam the way you would normally, but if you do it to the shortcut on your desktop, just add hyphen no blur, all one word, no spaces, or after the hyphen, it will help with the motion blur quite a bit. So ray tracing preset, you can see right now I'm running on medium. If you go to high, by default, that just puts on all the different ray tracing effects, and there are quite a few. This game has more ray tracing than any game we have seen so far up to this point, and it's also one of the best uses of ray tracing that I have seen so far. But you can see on high we got ray trace reflections, ray trace transparent reflections, indirect diffuse lighting, contact shadows, and ray traced debris. So if you have all these options up, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 to 45 FPS. But for the gameplay that I'm going to be showing you in this video, I was running on medium, which uses the ray traced reflections and the ray traced transparent reflections, which I honestly think are the most important things to have enabled in this game. The reflections and the way the lighting works in this game is absolutely incredible when you are using the ray tracing options. But if you put everything up here, like the shadows and the debris, like do you really need to have ray tracing on debris? Probably not. These things are going to add a very minimal visual impact, but it's going to hamper your performance quite a bit by probably another good 15 to 20 frames per second. So I would advise most people with RTX cards that want to run ray tracing to use the medium preset, or just turn on reflections and transparent reflections. And also use DLSS, for whatever resolution you're playing at. You'll get a pretty big boost in performance, and it looks about native res to me. It looks pretty damn good running on DLSS. It's not too blurry or anything like that. So I've been pretty pleased so far with the performance running on these settings, although it does not run at a solid 60 frames per second. There's definitely some times where I'm running in the 50s, which is okay for me running on a G-Sync monitor. It's not that big of a deal. But what is a big deal is the hitching, and there is quite a bit of it. You'll probably may have already seen it in some of the gameplay I'm showing, or you'll see it later on. Definitely when there's a lot of character models on screen, when you run into some of these rooms where it's like really red lighting, it's just hitching all over the place. It like drops, it'll just like drop down into like to 0 FPS for like a second and then jump back up into the 50s, and it is very jarring, and it is easy to get rid of that. It's basically don't use ray tracing, or if you want you could force DX11 with the executable for that, and that will help with it as well. So one of the biggest things holding back ray tracing in this game is not necessarily the performance of ray tracing itself, it's the hitching that you're getting. So it's not really just the frame rate being low, it's the hitching that you get even if you are getting a smooth, 50 to 60 frames per second most of the time. It's just this poor optimization where you get a massive spike down to 0 frames per second for a split second, and then it's back up, and it kind of breaks things. It's very jarring, especially when you're in the mix of some heavy combat. So for that reason, I probably won't play the entire game with ray tracing turned on, even though it does look really gorgeous. Hopefully they do get this resolved, in the coming days and weeks. Hopefully. That would be really nice to see, because even if I had to play at 50 FPS, I probably would, because the ray tracing does add quite a bit to this game, especially in the reflections department. And as I said at the start of the video, I'm running on the latest driver, which was just released today, 436.15, which is optimized for control. And I am still seeing these issues, although they are better than the previous driver. Initially, when I first downloaded this game today, I was running on the older driver, the 436.02, and that had hitching way more than it does now. But it's still there on this latest driver, just not as much, but it's still pretty bad when you're running on DX12 with ray tracing and everything turned on. So that's all I've got for you guys for now. I'm going to leave you now with just some raw gameplay and everything of Control, and you can keep an eye on the performance. And yeah, hopefully, it's maybe a game you guys want to pick up. So far, what I've seen, the reviews are actually really good, and I've enjoyed the first like 2.5 hours that I've put into this game so far. It's pretty fun. If you played Alan Wake or Quantum Break and you like those games, you'll probably like this. It definitely runs better than Quantum Break. If you don't use ray tracing and you're playing it like 4K with DLSS, you're going to get like 100 frames per second. It's going to run beautifully. But yeah, ray tracing, it definitely hurts the performance a lot. So I'm going to go now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, leave a thumbs up on it, and I'll catch you tomorrow for another one. Ta-ra.
Hey, are you new? Go talk with Chief Arish in the security booth. He's in charge here.
Chief Arish, FBC Security. Shouldn't you be in a safe room?
They all have HRAs. We're on the same side.
My name is Jesse Faden. I'm here to perform the directorial override to get the lockdown lifted.
Yeah, Chief Arish, FBC Security. Oh, hang on, you're the new director. It's a pleasure, ma'am.
Let's skip the formalities, please.
Right. Faden, ma'am. Look, as you can probably tell, it's a bit of a shit show down here. We've been holding our ground, but whatever's gotten into our buddies has them wrecking the coolant pumps and the power converters. The NSC keeps overheating, and my crews keep getting shot before they have a chance to make any repairs.
NSC?
Oh, sorry. Bureau jargon. It's what we call the power plant. The big rumbling metal thing. Salvador, head of security, asked me to protect it in case of an attack. See, what's inside is dangerous. Dr. Darling seemed to know it would be a target.
Darling? He's here?
No, he came down a few days ago, before everything went to hell. He was out of it. Smelled like a bar mat. He was ranting about vulnerabilities and how he only had one large-scale HRA, but that he needed it somewhere else. Still, at least he gave us these personal HRAs before he left. Hey, did I mention that he was tearing his clothes off? Crazy dude.
Darling knew the hiss was coming.
Listen, I love playing 20 questions as much as the next guy, but we have got to get the water and electrical systems repaired before this baby blows. I'll have my guys unlock the doors out of here for you.
I'll take care of it. You stay and keep the hiss away from the plant if you can.
The hiss? That's what we're calling him? Oh, that's catchy. Oh, listen, the radios aren't working, so if you find my boss Salvador out there, could you please ask him what the plan is? I'm sure he will have one by now.
I'll keep an eye out for him.
He sure has a lot of faith in his boss.
Try to stay alive.
Blockages in pipe C. Off back. Now. Body is gonna be so pissed.
Power cut. Replace the parts.
need to fix this thing ASAP.
Bro, go to city. Fix it fast. If the plant goes boom, we can throw the spoon in the core. Enemy the clock is blocking the pipes. You need to deal with that shit. He is very clever. He's trying to sneak in. We got him caught with his hand in the fist.
What the hell is that? Oh, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. like that sound. There go the pipes. Nothing more satisfying than manual labor.